Coming to you from the Black Swan Media Studios, this is Fireside Chats, talking to the real difference makers in the world. Now, here is your host, John Crump.
What is up, people out in YouTube land, Facebook land, Live, Twitter, everywhere else? I am John Crump, the host of Fireside Chats. Chris Shoemaker out there and John Voorhees and some other out there. If you want to join the conversation, the best place to join the conversation would be over on my YouTube page, slowly growing since YouTube decided to shut my old page. But yeah, tonight we brought to you by Black Swan Tactical. This is a little shirt they have here. My little Santa shirt that says, "Oh, only Santa should be," for the esteemed governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam. You can also get this other hoodie here. Once I get it over here, it's my No Quarter for Tyrants Jolly Roger shirt. And we also have stickers and patches and t-shirts, hoodies, jackets, flags, everything with a symbol on there. That is our symbol here. Tonight I am joined by a person, but before we get to that, you can always donate to my Patreon at patreon.com/John Crump, or a one-time donation at paypal.me/cc. Now let me get to my guest. He is a podcaster and a 2A activist. He actually developed one of my cohorts, one of my coworkers at Gun Owners of America, Rachel Malone.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. I am joined by Rob.
It's hard to get hold of Rachel.
Yeah, she's a hard worker. I mean, she's always working.
She's been that's a character trait of Rachel. She's been a hard worker for a long time. You were lucky to get her.
Yeah, she does wonders for GOA. And you do a podcast called Polite Society Podcast. I want to know what that podcast is about. I know what it's about, but tell my listeners what they're about. What's it about?
Well, okay, I do two podcasts. I'm a co-host on the Polite Society. It used to be called Politics and Guns. Pretty descriptive name.
Yep.
Then we went to trade shows, and we'd say, "Hi, we're with Politics and Guns." And when when the vendors heard the word politics, you thought we said taxes and venereal disease, because they just did not want to talk to us. And what are we going to call it? Little pink kitty cats and guns? So became the Polite Society, from the Heinlein quote, "An armed society is a polite society." But I also produce a podcast called Self-Defense Gun Stories.
Yeah, that's the one I really want to get into. I just want to touch on politics and guns a little bit, because it's a very well-known podcast in the two. And I mean, I love it. It's one of my favorite podcasts.
Great.
But through that, I discovered your other podcast. And let's talk about your other podcast.
The most popular part of the NRA, the Rifleman magazine that almost everybody used to get, is the Armed Citizen Stories. Hey, look, Grandma did a great job. And as you can imagine, I was at a training class, and one of the instructors looked at that and said, "Yeah, but was Grandma good or was Grandma lucky?" And I really stopped, because, okay, we've chosen the successful stories, but are they best practice? Grandma had a gun at the back door, and she used it to defend herself. Was it accessible if the bad guy broke in the back door? Would she already have handed him a gun? So it was great to look at samples of success from all across the country. There are many of them. In fact, usually we try and spread this type of story around so it's not too repetitive. And then say, Okay, good. The store clerk did great. Wow, he had to work really hard. Wouldn't it have been even better if the other employee in the store was armed? Infinitely easier for both of them. Things like that. We we want to remind people that self-defense is real, that it does happen, and that it's accessible.
Yeah. One of the stories I like to tell is, and people out there heard the story, when I was under, my mom was home alone with me and my four sisters, and there was a home invader that broke in, and she used a 38 special. He said no. She said, "I'll use you if you take one." Well, my mom said, "Yes, I will." And he tested her, and my mom was like, "I'm protecting my kids," you know, and
Absolutely.
that was it. So
Um,
that's one of the
and
reasons why I'm a big Second Amendment supporter.
and that story is so accurate because there have been a number. It's almost a myth amongst firearms instructors. Let's say this is typical, although I've seen it both ways. The dad goes, "Yeah, I want to get a gun to protect the family." Mom goes, "I don't know if I could shoot." You get mom to the range and you go, "That's a bad guy who's here to hurt your kids." And all of a sudden, she goes, "I can't let that happen."
Hmm.
Right. And so it's real. You're no longer hurting someone, you're protecting the people behind you.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Do you find that the media doesn't really reward defense uses for Second Amendment?
Um, we know for certain that there are a number of stories the media doesn't cover. When asked about it, they go, "Oh, we don't want to promote vigilantism." When is self-defense vigilantism? The only thing I get is that I get to keep my life. No one, even in the states where it is allowed, instructors don't teach people to use lethal force to protect property. Um, and it is allowed in some states, very few. I think it's deliberate. They are in the business of keeping you riveted to the screen, to the page, whatever, and sensationalism sells. So a murder is clearly sensational. The convenience store, the jewelry store, the mom who comes home unexpectedly and finds somebody in her house. Those self-defense stories get pushed back to the bottom of the sports section, if they're there at all.
You want to hear a crazy thing? My wife is from Italy. Her whole
Ah,
family's from Italy. And in Italy, if someone breaks into your house and you defend yourself, you're guilty.
right,
You get charged with a crime. Because in Italy, there's no right to self defense, which I always thought was like insane.
right, right.
And
And now I think Italy is changing. Their prime minister said he would try and allow more self-defense. British law is written more like ours, but the practice of it is more like Italy's. So there's a huge variance around the world. Things that we take for granted aren't universally supported.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know that until recently. And I was just there was a news story about someone who defended themselves, and there was somebody trying to break in, and they had a gun, and they tried to kill him, but the person was able to get a knife and defend themselves, and they were charged.
Um,
Insane.
Now, so the okay, I now listen. I am not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. Being charged and being convicted are two different things. But because legal defense is so painful, often the punishment is simply, we know we can't convict you, but we want to discourage this, so we'll charge you.
Yeah, well, ammo. This happened actually a history of people being charged and
Right.
for
Right.
self-defense. Which I mean, I when I heard that, I was like, "Are you?" I was like, "No, you're making." And I looked, and I was like, "Oh my god!" It's like
Well,
it's
let's um, in 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 one side of their mouth, gun control advocates say you should have to have insurance if you have a gun, and then we say okay. And in that, when we insure the acts that we take with a firearm, the insurance company says, "Well, we're going to defend you because otherwise, we have to." That's the job of an insurance company. We'll not only pay up if you're wrong, but we'll defend you because we think you did the right thing. Oh, no, no, that's murder insurance, say the gun control advocates.
yeah,
So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
you're like in New York, where basically they shut down NRA carry yard.
Right. Or I think most recently in Washington State, where was it second call? No, USCCA didn't have all their ducks lined up as insurance. Um, there is an issue. You can't insure an illegal action. So that's complicated right from the start.
Yeah, but what they want to do is they want to mandate that like a lot of people have insurance, and then they're going to go after the insurance companies to make sure that there isn't any insurance. So it's
Right.
like a backdoor to gun control.
It's
Um,
it absolutely is. But if you're in Virginia, isn't that right?
I'm in Virginia.
Right. And it's still a free enough state that you can carry, and you probably have uh, legal insurance so that if you do have to defend yourself, you don't have to come up with 50, 20 to $50,000 to make sure you have a robust defense.
Yeah, I use U.S. Law Shield. I was a USCCA member, but now I'm on board with
Okay.
U.S. Law Shield.
Okay.
USCCA is a great insurance. I just like I ran into like the CEO of U.S. Law Shields at a gun store,
Ah,
and
there you go.
and he saw me and he's like, "Oh, I recognize you from your picture on Ammo Land." I just started talking, and I was like, well, since I got a friendly relationship with this guy now, might as well use his service.
There you go. Um,
Yeah.
you
Um,
and I forget, I think what these stories help me do, and I end up taking myself to school every week. I have 8 different firearms instructors so that it's not too much of a burden for each of them. You and I forget that there's a lot of little things we know as gun owners.
mhm.
And you go, oh, a guy defends himself in a convenience store. Wow, look at all the things he had to do. Um, and people do it. But when it does seem daunting, if you take somebody and they go, I'd like to defend myself, you go, cool. The great news is there are many small steps to getting there. Each one is not intimidating.
Yeah. When I used to teach classes, one of the things I used to tell people, I used to say, "Do you carry a gun? Can you pull the gun and shoot someone if they attack you?" And you would be surprised how many people said, "I don't think so. I just want to use it to intimidate them." And that's when I was like, "You shouldn't be carrying a gun unless you're willing to use it in self-defense."
Now that isn't that odd? That works in the sense that when a police officer draws his gun, most criminals say, I'm done. I don't want to get in a gunfight. Criminals treat armed homeowners the same way, literally 29 times out of 30. Now, some guys don't get the message because many um, aggravated assaults, aggravated break ins, aggravated robbery, the people are intoxicated. So they're literally not thinking. Logic isn't working with them. Hi, this is going to be lethal. And they press on anyway. And
Or
occasionally, yeah, yeah,
like the guy with my mom.
right. Didn't do you think he was high or intoxicated or just
No,
crazy?
no, just crazy.
All right.
Uh, there was a serial rapist
Oh
in the
wow.
so it was most likely him. They were never able to tie him 100% to the other ones, but they're pretty
Gotcha.
sure.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he had a knife too. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight, especially with the pissed off mom.
Who's defending her family.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So where do you want to go next? That's
Um,
self-defense gun stories.
yeah, I wanted to talk to you about a little bit of stuff that's happening in Virginia and get your opinion on it
Wow.
a lot. Okay, I'm not sure how close you've been following it. Originally, they had all these bans they wanted to do and all these laws, and they're like no grandfather clause. And
Right.
then, as of last night, 70 counties Second Amendment sanctuaries, and I think probably about like 5 or 6 more will go Second Amendment sanctuaries tonight. So we're
Yep.
gonna have 80 by the end of the night, hopefully. I've been watching as they go until the amount of people speak is insane. In Hampton Roads, there's 1,500 people signed up to speak tonight.
That's
So
wonderful.
that's gonna go whatever. So the governor basically came back and said, "Oh, you know what? We're gonna allow you guys to keep what you already have as long as you register it." And hearing they're getting ready to drop the register as well. Okay, well, everything's grandfathered in that you already have, because people stood up and said, we're not turning anything in." And then they're like, "Okay, well, you just have to register it." And people are like, "No, we're not going to
No,
register it
no, we're
either."
not going to register it either.
And it to see out of this, and what I am seeing out of this is people are pushing back, and it's actually making a difference. Bloomberg dumped all this money in here and walk back this gun control thing. And what I want to tell people is don't be satisfied. Keep on pushing.
Right.
Um, did you think that you're going to see the explosion in advocacy in Virginia that we have seen?
No, no one thought that. It's a complete surprise. It is not organized from the top down. It is coming from the bottom up. You and I
It,
wonder where the heck they were in early
uh,
November, but okay, they're woken up now.
it-
Let me tease you with one more fact, John. When Connecticut passed a similar registration requirement for so-called assault weapons in Connecticut, not only did only 3 to 5% of the citizens register them, 3 to 5% of law enforcement registered them. The
I
other
think
95% said, nope, not me.
yeah, 50,000 people didn't register
Yep.
according to the estimates. In Virginia, I mean, it's just insane. Like, I'm the director for GOA for Virginia,
Right.
and I put my email out there. And before all this, no one ever emailed me. And now, I mean, it's just my email box is full. My Facebook Messenger is full. My Instagram is full. Everyone is just, how can I get involved? How can I get involved? And like, you got to go to the meetings. You got to sign up. And we actually have a website that we have a Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance
Model
post.
legislation. Yeah.
Yeah, gunownersaction.org/SASO, Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance. And people have been downloading that, been going to meetings. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like that. I didn't think it would, and it's really making a difference. What state are you in?
I'm in Louisiana. I'm up against the Texas border. Um, let's go back. Illinois has a large number of sanctuary counties.
Yeah, they do.
We saw after that, I mean, they've just been fighting it for so long that Illinois is controlled by Chicago, and downstate, which might as well politically be another state, said, you know what? We're not going to take it. No, we're a Amendment sanctuary county. We're not going to do what we consider to be criminal in the way we would prosecute firearms owners, unconstitutional. And we're not going to wait for the courts. We're just not going to enforce it now. When Bloomberg threw a lot of money at Colorado and they came up with magazine capacity bans, a bunch, get out of Denver and Boulder, and the rest of the state said, no, we're not going to do it. New Mexico wanted to impose mandatory background checks. Now, not for ownership, but for possession. They confuse those two issues. I hand you a gun. Do you need a background check? He's just going to shoot it. We're standing here at the range. Oh, but he has possession of it. And now I think all but 6 counties in New Mexico are Second Amendment sanctuary counties. So there's a lot of precedent. What's stunning is that it's happening overnight and it's spontaneous in Virginia.
Yeah. Chris Shoemake wants to know what exactly are the benefits for Second Amendment, second sanctuary laws. One of the benefits that people don't talk about is the message that it sends. Uh, it shows people in power that we're not going to be pushed around. Like in Virginia, for one thing, everything is basically controlled from Northern Virginia, where I actually live at. And Northern Virginia is highly, highly liberal. In fact, only 20% of our population in Northern Virginia is actually born in Virginia.
Right.
So, and 70% come from northern states. Another 10% comes from other, southern states. So they're bringing the northern values down here, and they're trying to change the state, and the rest of the state's standing up, saying we're not going to take it. This is one of the things that I like to demonstrate to people about, like, people who want to get rid of the electoral college. If we got rid of the electoral college, New York and California would control everything,
Right.
just like how Northern Virginia controls everything
Right.
from Virginia. It's like two different cultures, and that's one of the importance of electoral colleges.
Well, and it's the right. It's the difference between a republic and a democracy as well.
hmm
Um,
People get that mixed up a lot.
one of the huge advantages of the Second Amendment sanctuary county is it says it's against the law to spend money to violate someone's rights. If you do that, you're doing it on your own. Now watch what a government employee does. Everything he does is under the agency of a government. If he does something that is outside the scope of his activities, he's liable for those actions. And the
Yeah.
county's saying, not only did we not ask you to do that, we told you not to. If you do it, if you're sued, you have to defend yourself. That's a pretty big incentive.
Yeah. One of the cool things that I saw happen was in Chesapeake, Virginia. The attorney general told them, if you become a Second Amendment sanctuary, we're going to pull all your law enforcement resources from you. We're not going to give you any funding for law enforcement. And they told him that yesterday morning, I guess. And they had a vote on it, and it passed 5-0 that they're a Second Amendment sanctuary city. So they told them that, we're not going to let you bully us.
Well, isn't that interesting that we have a governor who says, I will withhold funds that you're owed unless you do politically what I want? Isn't that like quid pro quo?
That is exactly quid pro quo. And it's
Yeah,
also black.
literally. Yeah, it's right. Oh, so isn't that against the law when a politician does it? I guess not. The invariably the issue boils down to who's got the most money and the most lawyers. We are sadly not a nation of laws, but a nation of rules and regulations. And bureaucrats can intimidate us into doing the wrong thing. That's the beauty of this citizen movement that's standing up and saying, no, it's not right. Don't do it.
Yeah, I love it. It warms my heart. I was talking to Philip Van Cleve of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, which is an excellent organization. And this was like very early on, right after the election, probably 2 days after. We were on a call together, and he told me, like, you know what? He's like, in these last 2 days, he's like, I've been reached out and touched by so many people of what they're doing, and I'm optimistic. And I had the same exact feeling. I was like, well, I didn't really want to say it because the situation we're in, but I am also optimistic because the outpouring. And I thought, the last like the week or 2 weeks after, it might be a lot, then kind of you know simmer down. But it's like the exact opposite.
Right. And I think there was a bit of a bait and switch. The people who voted Democrat didn't think, a lot of independents didn't vote for the Democratic candidate going, yeah, I want to disarm my sister who's living in a pretty ugly apartment. Yeah, I want to make sure that she's disarmed and can't protect herself. Oh, the 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old who's working at a convenience store late at night while he's going to school. Yeah, I'd like to make sure that he can't have a gun. I mean, being a cabbie, being a convenience store clerk in a small store late at night, those are all dangerous occupations. That's what the politicians are saying. That's not the product they sold to the voters. And a lot of people are pretty cross about it.
Yeah. Hey, Corey out there about the NAACP showing up. I heard that they were going to show up and they were going to uh, be like very, very pro gun control. I'd like to talk to you about it after the podcast if you're still up, Corey. So just hit me up on Facebook and whatnot. But yeah, it's insane. Do you think that the movement that started in Virginia is going? Well, it didn't really start in Virginia, but it got a lot of energy from Virginia. Do you think it's going to expand to more states?
I hope so. Now we also have to bring up that Texas, after the attack at the Santa Fe High School, Governor Abbott in Texas said, "Oh, we really need to have background." He went down the gun
Yeah,
control laundry list, and all of a sudden, now there are sanctuary counties appearing all across Texas who are saying, you look like a governor, you talk like a Republican, but you're acting like an anti-rights Democrat. That's not what we elected you to do. And we've seen sanctuary counties across Texas. There's some in California. There's one in Arizona. So the seed is out there. Unfortunately, Americans are not particularly political, but they are finally motivated by outrage. And the governor went too far too fast. Had they taken 20 years to do it like they did in New Jersey, they probably could have gotten away with it. What do you think, John?
yeah, I think they would have gone away with it. That brings up another a good thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Have you ever seen the movie Rocky Mountain Heist?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. Somebody recommended to me Stephanie Lord, who runs the Well Armed Women.
Right.
She recommended me to watch it. Uh, it was about how Bloomberg basically came and dumped all this money into Colorado and basically stole the elections in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing was it was basically a roadmap of what he did in Virginia. But
Right.
the filmmaker said his next targets are Virginia and like the 2019 elections
Yep.
and Texas after that.
Right.
And it looks like they were on to something. And this movie's from like 2015.
Right. Right. Um, but if you'll recall, that started the recall movement
Yeah,
in Colorado, which started a number. I mean, Tim Knight, a former NRA board member, um, was just a Colorado businessman who said, "We can't let this stand." Laura Carno, I Am Created Equal is her website. She said, "How dare you tell me how I have to protect myself?" And think back on it, if you will. Policemen routinely face several armed assailants. So do most citizens. The average number of people involved in a robbery or attack is like 2.5. Um, think of it, a guy who attacks a lookout and a getaway driver. You're not sitting there. Criminals don't fight fair. And think back, oh, how many bullets would I like my wife to have if she has to stop 3 men? Holy cow.
Yeah.
Do magazine capacity restrictions really make any sense at all when you think of them that way? I I got involved in the gun control movement when my wife was threatened, and I went, "Wow, a 22 target pistol isn't really the tool I need." California already had magazine capacity restrictions, and I was introduced to the 1911.
Nice.
When you can only make a first impression.
Yeah. Chris Shoemake, who says he's from Louisiana as well, he said that a little bit up there. He wants to know if you guys need to go ahead with the 2A sanctuary movement in Louisiana.
I think we need it almost everywhere. And let me explain why. Virginia took a lot of their rights for granted.
Yeah.
Many states have all kinds of restrictions. Oh, you can't carry in a bar, you can't carry in a church, you can't carry in a school. You need, and now with some of the Virginia politicians did not do themselves any favors when they wrote a law that was could be so broadly misinterpreted as to make karate classes illegal. They look like fools. But think of it, when people go, "Oh, I don't want 18-year-olds to have guns." Your 18-year-old daughter can fly a car, fly a plane, drive a large truck for a living, can be married with children, and you're saying you want her disarmed? Doesn't make any sense. It people who um, that's headline surfing politics, and we need to drag them back on the planet. Those laws are in many states that call themselves pro-gun. They're in our to the listener, they're in our state of Louisiana. Yeah, we need one.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely do. I think one of the issues with Virginia, which made it so ripe for the picking, is our Republican Party in Virginia is having this like big civil war thing where they're like we're like factions of the party are fighting against each other. And it's really terrible because there's like 40 seats that they didn't run anyone in because they were fighting. So they just didn't run anyone.
Didn't that start with, wasn't it is it Cuccinelli? Is that?
In Cuccinelli, yeah.
Yeah, I wondered how that was pronounced. I mean, it's what we see at the national level. The Republicans running against Trump. Thank you, Paul Ryan. So there's a lot of establishment Republicans who are unhappy with citizen activism. You need to be skeptical about supporting politicians. Um, I I got to meet a large number of politicians in my area. There's some I will help and some I won't. You know, the good news is we now can talk to each other at the speed of light. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty easy to vet the people you're going to help get elected.
Yeah, I see Teven out there. Teven Show. If you haven't seen the Teven Show, it's a great podcast. But yeah, I just wish that they would like come together. I mean, you don't have to agree with everything with each other, but
Right.
this whole trying to tear down each other, it's like scorched earth policy
Um,
thing.
well, that policy is why I consider myself a libertarian and conservative. And that policy is why I don't donate to national Republican organizations. I don't even donate to my state Republican organization. I donate to candidates that I've vetted. And if people ask me, I go, yeah, this guy is someone I approve of. This person isn't. It's more work for me, but it's made me more active, not less.
Yeah, that's what I do. I actually left the Republican Party because of some of the people that they were supporting. There's a guy named Ron Meyer who I cannot stand. He can't stand me either. But I approached him, and he didn't know I wrote for AmmoLand. And I was like, "Hey, I just want to ask you," and he was like anti-gun. And I was like, "Why did you vote for this?" And he told me, he's like, "Well, I needed to vote for that to get reelected." And I was like, "What?" And I said, I really want to tell my followers exactly why, or I said my
Yeah,
readers, why. And
tell me more.
and he told me that, what did he say? He said something like, I don't care about your readers on your little blog. And I was like, okay. Um,
Okay, awesome.
so I wrote the story, and Emily gets a lot of traffic.
And it's republished a lot of places, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And after it hit 100,000 shares, he contacted me and was like, "Oh, can you correct this? I'll give you some statements." I'm like, "No." Like, do your research before you.
You told, isn't that interesting? You caught a politician accidentally telling you the truth.
Yeah. And
And
when I
then
he's like, "Oh my god," he's like, "You're gonna cost me my political career." I'm like, "Well,
I
no, you're gonna cost yourself your political career."
right, that was self-inflicted, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it was like the funniest thing. I'm like, "No, I'm not. Why would I rewrite my article? I wrote exactly what you told me."
Right. Here we can listen to now, isn't that amazing? Talking about the media, well, you reported the story accurately. Phil Van Cleve and the people at VCDL have been horribly treated by the media,
Oh yeah.
who essentially put lies in their mouths, took their actions out of context, and then when VCDL sued them, I believe it was Katie Couric who was being
Eric.
sued.
Yeah, Under the Gun for HBO.
A judge basically said, "Oh no, that's editorial license." You go, "Oh, baloney."
Yeah, she tried to say, "Oh, we did it for we cut this stuff for time."
But no, she didn't.
It's like, "Oh, you put a giant pause in there for time? Isn't that the opposite?"
Right. It was a lie.
Yeah.
Um,
Gun Websites is out there too. Awesome, another awesome podcast. I don't know if you ever listen to Gun Websites. He always
I've
invites you on, but he does it in like middle of the freaking night. You've out in like West Coast time zone, Pacific. So when they go on at like 9 o'clock, it's like sleeping time.
John, I used to do a fair bit of driving or working, and everything I do, I listen to our podcasts now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can participate live, but man, we're living busy lives. Thank you to the readers and listeners who take the time to listen live. That's hard to do. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I hate to make this so Virginia centric, but
Come on.
I love talking to you, and I love getting your opinions on some of the stuff. In front of Congress, the police chief of Charlottesville actually pushed to have all guns banned, wanted all guns banned.
Yep.
What is your opinion on that? I talked to Sheriff Chris Brown out of Arkansas, and he didn't held back. He basically called her an oath breaker. What's your opinion on that?
But consider what a police chief is. They're the law enforcement officer appointed by a city council or mayor. They have no political opinions. They're told what their political opinions are. So they're a mouthpiece about law enforcement matters of the mayor. So he's just a spokesperson. That's all he is. Um, what's embarrassing is that someone should then go to the mayor and go, "Why do you believe that, Mr. Mayor? Because he's just your spokesperson." And the answer is pretty clear. You need gun control as a whipping boy when your governmental policies have failed. And we see that across the country. It's tragic.
Yeah, it was the same hearing that one of my friends,
Hmm.
Diana Miller,
Oh, yeah. What
not
a
Miller, Mueller,
Mueller.
Mueller.
Right.
I don't know. I call him Miller, but Diana Mueller. She's been on my show several
The
times.
DC Project. God bless Di.
Yeah, Di's awesome. Really cool. Her husband's really cool too. And she was like, "I will not comply," which is awesome. In my local town, in my local county, our sheriff is pro Second Amendment. The board is all Democrats.
Gotcha.
They want to disband the sheriff's department and replace it with a police department for the county that would report to the
Right.
board, which I think is crazy that they want to get rid of the only Republican in office in my county who was elected by 92%.
Awesome. So what you guys have to do is start a recall. Just Colorado told you what to do. Start a recall petition to remove those board of supervisors and say, you don't understand, you're removing an elected official. That has a lot of historic precedence. Not only is it politically effective, but
Yeah.
sheriffs are the chief law enforcement officer for most of the country. When you think about it, in many large counties, they have a larger number of people voting for them than some congressmen.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful position. The state police work really hard not to get crosswise with local sheriffs, because what's a state trooper going to do? They're going to hand a criminal to local authorities, because they're not going to run them to the Capitol and put them in jail there. You don't. That's not how our laws work.
Yeah, for some reason, not all the chats are showing up. I got another monitor over there, but for some reason, not all the chats are showing up on our little side scrolling thing.
Okay.
So I'm trying to keep back and forth. But if you want to join the conversation, go to John Crump too. I'll be able to see most of it on my other screen here. Can't monitor 9 different places at once.
There they are. They're the live comments.
Yeah, it's not showing up all of them though. But most of the YouTube ones might be coming through, but not all of them are, and not all of the ones coming over there. Yeah, I thought it was crazy. I was talking to Sheriff Chris Brown out of Arkansas, and I said, "Why is the position of sheriff so important?" He said, "That's what I asked him. I think it's important, but I just wanted to get his opinion." And he had the great answer. He said, "We don't report to our board of directors. We don't report to the governor. We report directly to the people."
To the people.
And it's
Right.
like there's no wall separating us from there. So and basically he was talking about red flag laws, because he came out and said, "I'm not going to enforce red flag laws." And I have another sheriff from Culpeper County, Virginia, that's going to be coming on in the next week or so. And what he's doing is he said, "Oh, well, fine, you want to pass gun laws? There's an exception for law enforcement. I'm going to deputize everyone in the county.
Yep.
Every law-abiding citizen in the county will be deputized. So therefore, your gun laws would be useless."
John, I just thought of another analogy. Tell me if I'm wrong. You have floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, all the good stuff of the East Central states. Down here, we have something that was new to me when I moved down here called the Cajun Navy, because half of the state can get drowned. And then the other half goes, okay, guys, grab the small boats and trucks, and we got to move 20,000 people out of a flood zone.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. It is evocative of the same spirit that evacuated Manhattan in a few hours after the 9/11 attacks. It's self-organizing. Somebody finally came up with an app, but a church or a hospital will go, I need this. Somebody goes, I got it. Somebody else goes, I'll get you two together. Um, and I think that spirit is what you're seeing. A bunch of I'm just looking at the messages down here. How can I help? That's what happens after every sort of disaster.
Mm-hmm. That is what happens after every sort of disaster. What I would want to encourage everyone to do is not infight, though. You bring up the Cajun Navy, which I think is very interesting, but right now there's a lot of infighting going on with the Cajun Navy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, both sides contacted me,
Really?
and they both wanted me to write stories about it, but I'm like, yeah, that's not really my wheelhouse. I don't know. I guess one side contacted me to write a story about it, then the other faction heard about it and they contacted me. I was like, I write about gun issues. Like,
Right.
how am I gonna write about Cajun Navy for?
Well, it's um, because
But yeah,
government is limited, because we are largely a country where neighbor helps neighbor. If my house burned down, my local church would make sure that I had some clothes, you know. Yeah, I'd be in a motel room, but the parts that I like and deeply respect is the self-organization, the self-motivation, and pretty much the generosity, where guys go, you know, I don't need a lot of bureaucracy. Just tell me what needs to be done and where it's got to happen. If your neighbor was threatened, had a stalker, you'd be there, say, come on over. We'll see what it takes for you to have a robust self-defense. There wouldn't be any questions asked. You and I would probably do it, and then I might go to the sheriff and go, if she hasn't asked for a restraining order, she needs one, and I'm going to make sure she's got a firearm regardless of the laws, because we have already vetted the people we're willing to help.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. My mom, when she shot the guy, the gun that she got was from a friend who was a cop who knew she was staying alone
Right?
and that there was like a serial rapist on the loose. So he gave her the
It's
gun, saying, "Hey, you know." And my mom at the time was like, "Oh, I don't want a gun." And he was like, "Let me teach you how to shoot. You know, you're going to be alone in this house. There's this rapist guy going around. I want you to be safe." And she's like, "Oh, I think it's ridiculous, but okay." And look how that turned out.
what um did she then change her mind and become an advocate for others that would be in a similar situation?
Absolutely. I think when you have something like that happens,
Well, denial is, more than just a river in Egypt. Um,
yeah,
there are unfortunately a lot of rape victims who then some well, let's make a distinction. Many sexual assault victims then want to be armed if they weren't. If they were armed, they did not become rape victims. When I look at the FBI stats, um, no, it doesn't happen. Again, being armed won't stop an assault, but it will stop you from being victimized. And
I've
that's
had
sexual.
I've had 3 guests on my podcast that were rape victims. That that's why they got into guns.
Yeah.
Uh,
What can you? Yeah. And I've met a few. Um, Going
like
to organizations like GRPC is where those people speak up, and they are so compelling.
yeah, and I also like Beth uh from Town Hall was like one of the first ones who came on. And she said, "Yeah, this is the way," and she's very very open about it. That's why I'm
Wow.
bringing her up because the other ones, it's what happened to them, but they didn't really go into it. They're like, yeah, I had an event, so I don't want to like name them or whatnot. Uh, they're not really in the closet about it, but they're not like Beth from
Right.
EB40 on Twitter. You can follow her.
Yeah.
Really awesome person, but she
Cool.
is so open about it because she wants people to know. And going back to which I was talking about in Heist, they had uh, a rape victim talking in front of the Colorado legislature.
Right.
Oh, you saw, you know what I'm talking
Oh, oh,
about?
tell the story because it's powerful.
And she was like, if I had the gun, maybe I would be able to prevent the rape. And one of the legislators was like, honey, I just want to tell you, you probably still would be raped if you had a gun. And another person was like, well, you could have always got a whistle, rape whistle. And it was like so ridiculous. Really doing that to a victim?
The quote that struck me so strongly, and I think this was actually in Arizona, Amanda Collins, where they said, "Oh, you're lucky you didn't have a gun because the attacker would have used it against you."
Yeah, that's
And
different.
Amanda then goes, "No, ma'am. He brought his. You took away mine."
Yeah, that happened in Arizona. That was very powerful. Which shows you it definitely happened in like one state. It happens everywhere.
It's the human condition. It's not state specific, right?
It's
Um,
not state specific. You gotta realize that these people fight logs.
right,
Talking to Dan Groth, who was the president of the Brady campaign for 20 years,
right.
he will tell you that they're not interested in facts.
No,
That they have a deep hatred for guns,
right,
and no facts is going to change some of their minds on that
right,
side.
right.
That's one of the reasons why he left their side and came over to the light side. He left the dark side.
Well, he and I have something in common. I appreciate people who are so knowledgeable about firearms, but I'm not that into the hardware. I'm into the way it lets people be safe.
Yeah,
I mean, there are collectors. I'm not one of them.
I love guns, but I'm more of a constitutionalist, which means I speak up on the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. I got a shirt that says "Protect the First Amendment" and stuff like that.
Right,
Um, I speak up on the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment. I'm so against civil forfeitures, which is another issue, which is like totally. It's not gun related, but it's something that I speak up against.
right.
But the reason why I speak on the Second Amendment so much is I think that's the amendment. Two reasons. One, that's the amendment that's one of our rights that's under the attack the most. And two, that is the only right where it cannot be taken away. You have to give it away. So those are the two
Yeah.
reasons why I concentrate on the Second Amendment.
I, as was just shown to us painfully in Hong Kong, an armed citizenry will be respected. Politicians will talk to us rather than use force to implement their will over ours. And as you just had a governor who said, you know, I'm going to withhold state funds because I don't like what you're doing. Isn't that against the law? Well, come sue me. I have more lawyers than you do. So that's a pretty naked threat. And guns keep him from implementing it by at the end of a gun barrel, the fact that we're armed.
Yeah,
I wish people were polite, including politicians. It looks like they're not.
yeah. It's when the amount of guns in Virginia, how many people said they're not willing to give them up? That's why the governor's kind of backing off a little bit. Not as
Right.
much as we like, and we need to keep on hitting them. We shouldn't back down We need to keep on hitting it over and over again. But without guns, he wouldn't be scared.
There's something else that will frighten him, and I'd like you to consider it. When they were prosecuting Shaneen Allen in New Jersey.
Yeah, you want to tell people about that before we get into
Okay,
that?
this was a gal out of Philadelphia. She's
Yeah.
a phlebotomist. That's somebody who draws blood. She was
And a
going.
permit holder. She
Yes,
no crime, no criminal record, no nothing.
and she's going down, I think, to Atlantic City to see somebody with for a birthday party. She gets stopped by a policeman for a lane change where she didn't signal. Really, and then trying to be all upfront about it, she goes, "Officer, I have a gun in the car. That's what I was told to do in Philly." Well, she needed to know more. Her permit wasn't recognized in New Jersey. They basically threw her under the jail. Her 2 kids are at home. She was going to lose the kids. Finally, I mean, she got put in. It wasn't, oh, here's a ticket, report. They put her in jail for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, charged her with felony.
Right. And one of the things that stopped it, one, billboards, people from across the country, and a bunch of people started handing out jury nullification literature at the courthouse where she would have been prosecuted. And all of a sudden, a bunch of DAs went, I don't want to fight that fight. And there are enough gun owners in Virginia that jury nullification is the ace in the hole, because you don't even need to be a majority for that to work.
No,
You need to be 1 out of 12.
Yeah.
So think about it. Start talking about it, that if gun owners are selectively prosecuted, we can stop that too.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that most counties are going to be on board with us in what we want to do. I hope it's something like in Colorado. Colorado, all but 2 sheriffs said they wouldn't prosecute gun crimes.
Well, now let's be clear. We mean gun technicalities, right?
Gun
Like,
technicalities, yes.
oh,
Like,
you couldn't prove that magazine that you had wasn't grandfathered in. Yeah, that we got. You and I are embarrassed by the degree to which district attorneys will plea bargain gun crimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like, I use X-Tech mags. Here's an X-Tech mag right here. Cool company. There's one of their AK mags. I got a bunch of their AK mags. I run a bunch of X-Tech stuff. One of the things you notice is on their date marks on all their magazines. I don't know if this is the reason why they did it, but they stopped updating their date marks.
Thank you.
You can't really tell. And they also sell something where you can buy a 10-round mag. It has a little sticker on there that says 10-round mag. You can rip that sticker off, and they sell a kit, which they will ship to a free state. $5 ships, and all you do is remove the base plate and stick the 30-round mag base plate in there, and you got the 30-round mag.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why they're doing that or why they stopped updating the days. I love that company. They are true Second Amendment supporters. All GOA supporters. They work with GOA a lot. They give a lot of money to GOA. Any 10-round mag that you buy, which they call their California mags, $1 of that goes to GOA.
Bless them. Thank you.
Yeah,
what's their name again? Tell me. I want. There you go. Out of what state?
They're out of Arizona.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. And yeah, isn't that fascinating that there are states that say we want to limit the number of cartridges you can have in your gun. You're going to, by the way, be a first responder. After you're done fighting off the bad guys, when you call the police, they can show up with higher capacity mags. Police see more criminals per day, but each policeman does. But citizens see many more criminals than the police ever do, because most criminals aren't caught. We are the first responders.
Yeah. Um, Matt, that's Cowboy brings up a good point. In Colorado, this is how stupid Colorado is. You can't buy a 30 round mag, but if you take it apart, you can
You
buy
can
it.
sell it. Yep.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
Well, it doesn't. Yes, it does. It makes political sense in the sense that headline surfers said, this politician wants to save my children, because that voter never knew that guns save lives.
Yeah.
He doesn't know because the news media deliberately doesn't tell him.
A gun is
Now,
4 times more likely to be used in self defense than it is to commit a crime.
hundreds of times. And that was a secondary impetus of my podcast, Self-Defense Gun Stories. And
Yeah, that's why I like that podcast.
thank you. One of the things that we already know, for example, even Florida, after the attack down there at the Naval Air Station, some politicians immediately called for more gun control. I wrote an article where I said, you're already costing lives by the gun control you have. We can look at states that have it. It doesn't take much regulation and encumbrance to discourage a lot of people from getting their carry permit. And then they become armed victims. And those numbers are runnable. What was interesting was there were about 700 rape victims a year who were disarmed by Florida's gun laws.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look how many people on campus get raped.
Yes.
And most campuses are, gun-free zones.
Right.
How do besides like podcast, how do we let other people outside the gun community know? Besides walking up to them and just, start spitting out facts.
Well, I don't think you even do that. You of course, you're part of the community. You're part of a larger community. Have you talked to your church about being part of a church security team? Have you talked to women's shelters about now, given that so many different sorts of people can end up in a shelter, they may be the victim of long-term abuse. That person does not need a gun. She needs shelter and then to get her head put back on or his head put back on. Men are victims too. Be part of your community, live it, and ask your newspaper why they don't cover it.
Matt Does Cowboy, he was my producer here. He brought up that conservative estimates say that 250,000 lives are saved each year, and the higher estimates have it at 2.5 million.
Now, that's a slight exaggeration. That's a CDC number, the 2.5 million, where it said individuals used a firearm for self-defense. It was an immediate lethal or threat of great bodily harm situation. If they didn't have it, would they have died? No, but they've certainly faced the threat, a lethal threat. And 500,000's too low. We know it's more than that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, that's where I got it from, CDC.
There you go.
There you go. You call that pretty.
Well, you and I have been doing this for a while, and when you get curious and dig behind the numbers, where'd that number come from? It's amazing. Is it amazing? Hold on. All of our listeners are taking themselves to school by listening to us. Guys, thank you. Guys and gals, thank you. If you keep that up, you become a local expert. You know far more than your local news reporter on this subject because you followed it for years. You may, in some particular areas of information, know more than law enforcement or your local sheriff. They
Yeah.
have other jobs.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is I always researched numbers before I read an article. I want to know where it came from. And there was an article on a Mom's Demand Action website. And so I contacted them and they were back and they said, we got it from Giffords. And then I went to Giffords and they said, we got it from the Brady campaign.
Which
They
is
went,
that's the left pocket, and that's the same pair of pants, just different pockets.
yeah. So I went to the Brady campaign and then they said, we got it from Everytown.
Which is
Now,
still it's all Bloomberg's organization.
yeah. So I went to Everytown and then I was like, well, where'd you get this information from? And they referred me back to the article that I started at. Circle. So I'm like, okay, basically, no one has any idea where this number came from.
So, isn't that the FBI method that we're hearing being used lately in Congress? The FBI method of investigation. We'll all talk to each other, and now we have a rumor. Now we have something to go and start an investigation on.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like that's not how you're supposed to do stuff.
Well, you call them out, and you have to call them liars. And thank you for
Oh,
running it down.
I did, and the lady who originally wrote the article, she started texting me. She was pissed. She was like, "Why didn't you come back to me and tell me that?" I'm like, "What do you mean? You should know where you get your stuff from."
Right.
Why would I go back and say, "Hey, you need to research this number"? Look, I'm sure you would have changed it.
Well, you would. Okay. Let's think ahead a couple of years. The people listening tonight are passionate about this subject. They stay informed. They send an email to their local paper or news station when they notice that something's not right. And they say, guys, you got this fact wrong. You might want to put a retraction or have it, in your file for next time that don't use this fact again. It's been widely discredited, and I respect you too much to think you'd put out false information. And if you keep that up, do that a couple of times, you become a resource.
Yeah.
You become a local expert.
One of the things I also like to do is look at news articles and try to pair them to anti-gun groups stuff, because a lot of times it's just press releases that they
Right.
write a little bit of a news article, and then you can point out to people. And when you call them out on it, usually I've done this with New York Times, I've done this with Washington Post. The article, they don't respond to you, but the article magically gets deleted.
Cute. Good job.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that I do a lot, and it's just funny because you'll see
Thank
that they
you.
won't respond. It's just the article will be deleted off their website.
Poof. Other than the Wayback Machine, it's not on their website anymore.
Yeah, you can find it on the Wayback Machine, and there's also another website where you can see how they change the stories. 'Cause a
Oh,
lot of
interesting.
uh, I got it upstairs bookmarked, but a lot of times they will still edit the stories like a couple weeks later. So and
Hmm.
to like if you call them out on a discredited fact, they'll be like, "We never said that." There is a website that tracks like all these news sites and their changes to articles, and it would do
Right.
like a show compare in programming. That's what we call it, where it's like you have
Right.
a
Right.
different article that shows you what's been added, what's been removed.
A change log. Right.
Yeah, basically a change log.
So Beth Alcazar had a great comment at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. She said, news articles should be worthy of being put on your refrigerator. That means people come away and know what to do.
Yeah,
So, what would people who want to be active in the Second Amendment sanctuary movement in Virginia, in Maryland, What should they do, John?
They should. The first thing you need to do is you need to show up at these meetings. People showing up at meetings is huge. It shows them, that there's support. Whoever speaks the most usually wins. So if you can have more speakers than the anti-gunners, then that is a huge win. Another thing you can do is you can contact your board of supervisors, your state representatives, everyone, even if they're Democrats. Contact them. I was talking to one politician who said, I asked him, I was like, "Well, how many people have to contact you before you actually will like look into something or do something?" And he said, and this is a national politician. This isn't at the state level. They're like, "Oh, 10 people contact our office about something." It's like 10? That's all it takes to make a difference? 10?
Yep.
And he's
Yep.
like, "Yes." He's like, "Because most issues, no one calls."
Wow. Well, let me. People like stories. When I was still in California, a friend wanted to open a firearms range in a building he already owned. It had a minor zoning variance, and the city said, "Oh no, that wasn't how we thought we'd use that. We don't really like gun ranges." And it's amazing when 500 people go to the next town council meeting and say, "What do you mean you don't like gun ranges?" They go, "Oh, yeah, let me study that again till we come up with an answer that will let me get reelected." Um, yeah, for 10 when the attitude was, "Oh, no one likes gun ranges. We're a very upscale little city." And 500 people, obviously, they're not that many would fit in the town council room. They're out in the plaza going, all those people think different, and they had to listen. So please show up.
Yeah, at the Hampton City meeting tonight, they had to change it to a local high school gym because so many people came.
God bless.
And they
Thank you.
had about 500 people out in the parking lot and like 1,500 people inside, which was insane.
That's that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Now if they will keep doing it, even better.
Yeah. We have to survive this election cycle. But I think what they did, it's the same thing that happened in Colorado. It's short term games, but what they do is they wake up a beast. They wake up the big dragon.
Well, yes and no, in the sense that Colorado is still blue.
It's still blue. Yeah.
So people were awake for the recall, but they didn't stay woke. Um,
Yeah.
it's
That's
a long term effort. Um, it, this it'll be interesting in several years from now, John. We'll come back and we'll say, "Why are you active in local politics?" And they'll go, "Well, because back here at the end of 2019, I had to be active because I had to get a Second Amendment sanctuary started in my town."
yeah.
And this is the beginning for a lot of people.
I've never seen anything like this. I talked to
Yeah.
other people in like Colorado who live in Colorado and other states that went through kind of similar thing, and they're like, "Well, what's going on in Virginia is just insane." I mean, at the beginning of this, before all the Virginia stuff, and back in November, there was 240 sanctuary counties nationwide. As of last night, since that statistic, Virginia's added 75 more to that.
I went on the Virginia Citizens Defense League website, and they're just keeping a tally of when these meetings are held. There were 90 meetings that were going to be held to discuss this issue in December. Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. And
Well,
most
it's
are going to flip into sanctuary counties. One of the things that we're doing, well, people always ask me, what good is a sanctuary county? If you get like 90 to 95% of the counties in the state saying we're going to be sanctuary counties, then you're going to go to the representative and you'll be like, how are you going to enforce this law if 95% of the state isn't going to obey it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that the state doesn't have an enforcement mechanism.
Oh, we hit 80. There's 80 now.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
yeah. So yeah. Okay,
Excellent.
there you go. 80. 80 now. So
And how many counties are in Virginia? 100 and
120.
yeah, okay. So I like it. You got 2/3. Keep going, dude. um,
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, in 45 days, we had 3 before everything started. So basically, in 45 days, 77 counties went to a sanctuary.
I like it. I like it. Good.
And there's more meetings coming up this month. That it's not
Yep.
done.
It's not done.
It's gonna be a hit 100 by the end of the month.
Well, but it is a first step. Okay. For a lot of these activists now, they're going, gosh, I didn't know my rights were being threatened. Maybe they're just into field sports. Maybe they just target shoot. Well, step up. You're an active part of your government. You
Yeah.
are the citizen is self-governing. Get on with it. Get your concealed carry permit.
Yeah.
Learn to do that properly. Be a role model for your community.
I have a friend named Ed, cowboy out there, my producer out there. He knows him too. Ed doesn't own any guns.
Okay.
Shoot guns. If you say, "Hey, you want to go try to shoot this gun?" He'd be like, "No, I don't want to shoot it." But he's showing up to all these 2A rallies and doing all this 2A stuff.
Wow. Tell me a little bit more. He just likes liberty that much. Is that the draw?
Yeah, he likes
Excellent.
liberty. And if you look at Dan Gross, the guy I was talking about, the former head of the Brady campaign, he doesn't own any guns, but yet he's speaking at 2A rallies and speaking up for 2A rights. And he's like, I still don't want to own a gun, but I understand why people do.
Well, and I think
And
his family has a history, I think, of being injured with firearms.
yeah, his brother was shot in New York,
Right.
Empire State Building shooting.
Which, when I think about it, shame on New York and their restrictive gun laws. There are periodically you read about a criminal doing something, and then you read the comments under it, and I was like, didn't he realize this is Texas, and he was going to get shot? Unfortunately, the attitude in New York is, didn't he realize that the citizens were disarmed, and he was going to shoot anybody he cared to shoot?
I had Stephen Williford on the show last week.
Yep.
And he's in Texas, and he responded to the church,
right,
with the AR-15, and now not only did they not go all gun control on it, the pastor of the church now is a concealed carry permit holder, and the church now has they do gun classes, and that church is now armed, and they have a response team.
If you're interested in armed church, look up Carl Chin. He has been keeping stats on that. He's also written a book, Evil Invades Sanctuary. There were 4 armed parishioners in that church on the day it was attacked, but they left. Yeah. They were an informal security team. Now they're very formal. Now they want to make sure that someone is there all the time. I understand you might want to protect your family at church, and therefore you carry armed. Could you talk to your pastor about doing it more formally so that you're sure there's always someone there to protect the church?
Yeah, unfortunately, my church isn't. My church is. I go to a Catholic parish, and they're kind of like really anti-gun.
Well, yep. Talk to them. Talk to them.
Oh, I have.
Well, okay, but as you said, if 100 people talk to them,
yeah,
and there are, I found out that some Catholic parishes do have security teams. despite perhaps what the Archbishop says. So,
Yeah. I think that's what Dan actually told me what Cowboys put up there. I've seen firsthand the ideological hatred of guns and the people that are relentlessly and unfairly demonized.
wow.
That's
Yes.
a quote that he told me. I wrote an article about him and interviewed him
Thank
for
you.
Land, and that was one of the things. All right, well, we've been talking for like an hour, 20 minutes now.
Uh, um, well, I found it fascinating, John. Thank you for inviting me on.
Well, thank you for coming on, especially when you asked like what we're going to be talking about. I'm like, I don't discuss that before we go live.
We'll we'll figure out something.
But no,
And
it's one of the things. Well, it's the Joe Rogan method.
right.
You don't talk about anything before you go live, and you see where it takes you.
Well, and you know what? We could go on for another couple hours. We've been at this a while. We can go in depth. Hopefully, the news will give us a chance to go back and write and not be overwhelmed by everything we should be writing about. See you in print, John.
Yeah, see ya. Oh, I like this. A G-Web's idea started to adopt a county system where you adopt the sister county and other states to keep the momentum going and awareness growing.
Ooh.
That is an awesome idea, G-Webs. Are you familiar with gun websites?
No, I haven't. I've just it's been my introduction right now.
He has about 150,000 subscribers, listeners, watchers,
Okay.
and he does a show. So he's kind of like
I'll look for it now.
yeah, you should look for it now. He does really good stuff. He's also a ninja, by the way.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. He was at an event that I was at in Vegas one week, and I didn't see him. And he's like, "Do you just like?" He was there. I was there. I didn't see him anywhere. And then the next week, he was at the DC 2A rally, and I was there too. And so he finally came up to me, and we talked, and we're all talking, and then it was like three of us talking, and all of a sudden we turned around, and he's like disappeared, and I didn't see him.
um,
Like, he was a
I
ninja.
I I was at a self-defense. What's it called? Seminar, several day seminar. I guess that may be a contradiction.
Oh,
Um,
apparently you met him, by the way,
I have. Okay.
3 times.
Um, but I don't. Okay, I don't know him.
He was at GRPC too.
Well, I'll have to say hi on Facebook so I can put a face to a name. Um, and these guys were knife fighters
Yeah.
at GRPC and at TACCON, and you're all, wow. For people that um, think about defending themselves with a blade, they're fascinating to be around. Learn a lot from them.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a few of them from my days in martial arts.
D-
Yeah,
It's different than what I do, and I appreciate it. Wow.
yeah,
We got this. See, we got distracted again. Okay.
especially like the Filipino knife fighters that take the Filipino
Yeah.
martial arts. Freaking insane. All right. Well, it was great. Give out your websites and stuff, and tell people how they can find you.
Okay. My writing starts at slowfacts.wordpress.com. From there, it goes to Ammoland, to Clash Daily, to 2A News, to the Daily Surge. I put out a podcast called Self Defense Gun Stories, and I'm a co-host on the Polite Society. Sometimes our mutual friend Bill Frady lets me come on his radio program,
Yeah,
usually the first hour of the week.
I was supposed to be on a show last week, but I had some medical stuff going on, so I had to
Oh,
cancel the last minute. But yeah, Bill Brady's going to be on this show, I think, next week or so.
thank you, John.
Yeah, Bill's a great guy. Bill Frady at Lock and Load Radio. If you haven't ever heard his radio show, he is like the godfather of 2A podcast, I guess you can say.
Right.
But,
Well,
yeah,
except
check
he
him out.
does 15 hours, 16 hours a week live. Wow.
Yeah, he does that, and he's also on terrestrial radio too.
Right. Right.
Well, good guy. I love his podcast. I listen to it religiously.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, you do once a week, right? With Bill Friday? Or
Yes,
you? Yeah.
I'm on the first hour of the week.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Well, that's all we have. Remember, hit me up on my Patreon, become my Patreon. We're going to be sending out some free patches and stickers and everything. And Rob, send me your address. I'll hook you up some patches and stickers.
That'd be great.
The new patches should be here. They're currently sitting in Cincinnati. I don't know why they've been in Cincinnati for a few days. They're supposed to be delivered on Monday, but they're still in Cincinnati. Also, yeah. So you got some new subs there. Also, join GOA. If you go to GOA and you put in code black-swan-media, you can get 25% off and join for $15. Guns and politics and guns. That's the website, right? For
Yep.
Play Society, right
Play
there.
Society.
And remember, Black Swan Tactical for making this happen. You can get this awesome Christmas shirt that says "Only Santa should keep a list." It's available in multiple colors right here. And he's holding a little Tommy gun here. And you can always get my favorite, my hoodie. You can get this t-shirt also. The No Quarter for Tyrants. Flags, t-shirts, stickers. Got plenty of stickers, patches, and whatnot. And that is it for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Or not this week, tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I have Eric Dornbush. You might never heard him, but he's the owner of Green Eye Tactical, and he was a member of a little military unit that's not too elite, but they're called Delta Force. So he knows a lot about guns.
Certainly.
And he runs Green Eye Tactical, which is one of the biggest shooting schools in the country. They train military, they train special forces, they do Delta Force training, they train law enforcement from all around the country. But one of the things that he does is he will not offer a class to the military or law enforcement that he will not offer to civilians. We're going to be talking about that and what he does tomorrow. He's a great guy.
Now you've got me. Now you've just got me with an appointment tomorrow night to listen. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Delta Force is some no joke stuff. But yeah, it's pretty elite unit there. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow night with Eric and Noel. And thank you once again, Rob.
Thank you, John.
You've been watching Fireside Chats with John Crump, a Black Swan Media Group production. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tune in every week for a conversation with the difference makers in the world.